Let's just jump right into it. Today, we're stepping into the shadows to explore something a little darker, but honestly, absolutely fascinating. We're going to deconstruct a classic, deeply enduring Mexican ghost story. We're looking at the actual anatomy of a myth. You know, folklore is incredibly powerful because it tells us so much about human nature, our deeply rooted fears and our tragedies. And I've got to say, very few stories carry the chilling weight of the one we're about to explore. So get comfortable, maybe keep the lights on for this one, as we dive into this explainer and break down the mechanics of a legend that is literally echoed through generations.
Okay, so set the scene with me here. Picture a dark, dead quiet night. You're walking completely alone, all you hear is the steady, rushing sound of a nearby river. And then, cutting straight through the darkness, you hear a sound that just makes your blood run cold. It's a wail. This long, incredibly mournful cry. You look out toward the water, and you see this mysterious figure. It's a woman, dressed head to toe in white, just weeping by the riverbank. This right here is the central, haunting image of our story. So who exactly is this woman? Why is she there? And maybe most importantly, why has her image absolutely terrified people for so many years?
We're talking, of course, about La Llorona, which translates to the Weeping Woman. Now, this is a profoundly renowned piece of Mexican folklore. But what's so vital to understand here, and what I really want you to take away from this explainer, is that La Llorona isn't just some simple monster hiding under the bed. She's not a mindless creature cooked up for a cheap jump scare. No, she's the enduring subject of a deeply tragic cultural legend. She's a figure born from immense, totally overwhelming pain. To really understand the ghost, we have to understand the tragedy that created her. Her weeping isn't just some spooky sound effect. It is the absolute core of her identity.
But where does all that pain actually come from? Well, the legend of La Llorona always starts with an overwhelming emotional break. She's caught right there between sadness and madness. And the origin of that break is beautifully yet terrifyingly ambiguous. Did she snap because of an unfathomable, crushing sadness? Or was she suddenly overtaken by pure, unadulterated madness? The story actually allows for both interpretations. It's this psychological breaking point that theoretically any of us could fear experiencing. It grounds the entire myth in raw human vulnerability way before it ever turns supernatural. It's honestly the perfect setup for a tragedy.
But that emotional break, it actually leads somewhere. And this is where we move from the realm of human tragedy straight into absolute horror. The source describes what happens next simply as the unthinkable act. Just let that phrase sit with you for a second. This is the pivot point of the entire legend. It's the exact moment where there's no turning back, where a human being, completely in the grip of sadness or madness, crosses a terrifying line. The story's basically warning us that when the human mind finally fractures, the results can be absolutely devastating. This emotional break builds into a stark, unforgiving two-step sequence. Step 1, she drowns her 2 children. Step 2, she drowns herself. There's no complex plot twist here. There's just brutal, heartbreaking finality. By drowning her own children, she commits the ultimate violation of nature and motherhood. And then by drowning herself right after, she seals her cursed fate. These 2 terrifying steps are the engine of the entire myth. This is the unforgivable sin that permanently traps her between the world of the living and the world of the dead. Now, what's so fascinating about the nature of folklore itself is that the tale of La Llorona actually differs from place to place and from time to time. But hey, that's how oral history works, right? When a story gets passed down by word of mouth over generations, it doesn't stay perfectly static. It shifts depending on the geography of who is telling it. Like, a village in one region might add a detail about their specific local river, while a storyteller in another era might update the context to fit their own contemporary fears. The legend breathes, it adapts, it survives, literally by changing from place to place and time to time.
So the crucial takeaway here is that despite all of those shifts, despite the changing locations, the different centuries, the varying interpretations of her madness, there is an anchor. One detail remains consistent. And this is the true power of contrast in storytelling. When everything around a myth is fluid and changing, the one thing that never changes becomes incredibly powerful. It becomes the absolute truth of the legend. And in the case of La Llorona, this unchanging detail is the terrifying element that keeps the ghost story alive today. And here is that chilling, consistent detail right at the heart of the lore. The weeping woman is still out there, wailing and mourning her 2 boys, and looking for others to join them. This is the absolute rule of the legend. It doesn't matter what town you're in or what century it is, the story always dictates that she is still out there. She did not find peace in death.
Her mourning is eternal, and her wailing is endless. This quote really captures the exact mechanics of her curse.
And notice how precise the lore is about this. She's mourning her two boys. It's not some vague concept of lost children. It is exactly two. This entirely grounds the ghost story in its core tragedy. It gives her eternal grief a very specific shape and weight. Every single time she wails, it's for those two distinct lives that she ended in that unthinkable act. Focusing on this specific number really forces us to remember the humanity and the very specific loss sitting right at the center of the horror.
But she isn't just crying helplessly. She is looking for others to join them. Now, this changes everything. This is exactly where we transition from feeling pity for a tragic figure to feeling genuine, deep-seated terror. She isn't just a passive ghost. She is actively searching. Her grief has literally weaponized her. Because she can't get her two boys back, she's looking for replacements. She's looking for others to drag right into her cursed existence. And that makes her actively dangerous to anyone who crosses her path.
Which brings us to this incredibly direct warning. You have to watch out. The myth isn't just some story about something that happened a long time ago to someone else. The way this legend is constructed, it is a direct threat to you, the listener. If she's still out there and she's looking for others, well, then you are a potential target. This direct second-person address is such a brilliant psychological tool used in folklore. It makes you feel personally involved in the stakes of the myth. It basically brings the ghost right to your front door.
So how do you actually protect yourself? Well, the source material provides a very clear, essential survival guide baked right into the lore. There are specific warning signs you need to look out for. First, a woman in white. Second, she's down by the river. If you see these two things combining, you are in the presence of the legend. These warning signs are simple, they're visually striking, and they are highly effective as a cautionary tale. If you're near the water and you see that flash of white, the story tells you exactly what it is and exactly what you need to do. Run.
We've traced the anatomy of La Llorona from her totally ambiguous, tragic beginnings of sadness and madness through her unthinkable act, all the way to the eternal, unchanging threat she poses as a weeping woman in white. It really is a masterclass in folklore construction. So I'll leave you with one final thought. Knowing the rules, knowing her eternal grief, and knowing that she is actively searching, will you be watching the river tonight? Stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next explainer.